No, that's awesome. I'm totally that way too, where like I get overwhelmed with all the apps out there, like people are like, oh, I have an app for grocery lists. I have an app for this. And I'm like, I just use my memos, my notepad,
Yeah.
like on my phone, and I'll just memo it. And like you said, like keeping track of the ounces, like you don't necessarily have to do that. If that's too overwhelming for you, then just mark like, oh, I pumped this, at this time. And you can even put like for how long you pumped, or you can just skip that too if you want. And so that's what I was gonna ask you too. In the beginning, how long do you pump for? Are you still pumping that same amount of time, like 10, 15, 30 minutes? Like, what's the range for that?
Yeah, so I typically pump every 2 to 3 hours, 30 to 45 minutes. And either one is fine. It just depends, if I have a lot going on, I'm like, okay, 30's good, or if I can do longer. And then also I try to power pump as often as I can. So in the beginning, that was a lot. Like I tried to pump power, and power pumping is basically, so you pump, let's say I do the 45 minutes, and then after that I do 10-minute increments. So I'll wait 10 minutes and then I'll pump for another 10 minutes, and then I'll wait and then I'll pump. And you do that 3 or 4 times, and it's just causing that demand on your body, just like a baby would if they're cluster feeding. And so I used to do that a lot more often in the beginning, just because Ezra was small and it was easy to do. And now I try to do it, more so towards the night. But that just kind of keeps your body, in demand, especially like I said, as he's been more active. I'm trying to continue as often as I can to pump. And I'm the same way. He's past one, but I'm like, you know what? I mean, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, I want to give him all the nutrition I can. I'm just gonna try my best to pump until whenever, or, you know, whenever the Lord opens my womb and I have another baby, and I know that can change your supply, then okay. But I'm gonna do my best. And so, it's nice when I power pump, because sometimes I do miss my times nowadays, just watching after him. But I still have that regulation that my body knows, okay, I need this amount of milk. And so yeah.
Yeah. And did you say you're still getting up at night to pump with how old he is? Or
Yeah.
do they, so do they recommend that just to keep the supply up? Because I know normally, like when my kids get a bit older, like I can kind of, if they're not doing nighttime feedings, then I don't get up, or, you know what I mean? So is it just to make sure that you don't lose it?
Yeah, so, and I mean, there have been nights where, if I sleep the night through, like especially if I was feeling sick or something like that, it doesn't feel like my body like doesn't like the next pump session I'll just have more milk. So it doesn't feel like it super affects it, but especially because it's um with pumping, you don't really know how empty you are. Um like nursing the baby empties you more of the milk, so it causes that demand on your body. And so sometimes with pumping, I'm not able to discern as well, I feel like, from what I've understood. Obviously I don't know, but how empty I am. So the more often you do it, the better it is, because you keep emptying and your body's like, you know what, I need to make more milk. So if I did like sleep through, and I have, it's not a big deal in that sense, but I just do my best. um and like in my case, in the beginning, I was able to do like, 100% milk, 100% feedings. But now, he does have some solids, or sometimes if I really need to, I supplement. Um, and so, that's another thing that's kind of hard for me. But I'd kind of just do my best to, hey, you know what, I'm, literally giving my all. And I hope that can also be an encouragement. I've talked to some ladies before who, friends of mine who have started pumping, and then maybe they'll stop because they feel like, well, if I'm only getting, 2 ounces out of this that time, or 3 ounces or whatever. And I'm like, it's just so worth it to me though. That's why it just encourages me to keep going. And yeah, but you really get used to it as well. Just getting up, and I don't know. I normally I'm doing something interesting. Maybe I'm reading the Bible, or I'm reading fiction, or what I'm typically reading, because I feel like maybe if I'm already into a story, I'm like, oh, let me make sure I wake up, and it kind of encourages me to do so. So, yeah.
Or find something that motivates you then,
Hmm.
right? To get up and get it done. So I was gonna ask you too, with the 45 minutes, you're pumping both sides, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that way, for those of you wondering, you don't have to sit there for, 1:45 and then another 45. You can have the dual pump, you can do both sides. So that's awesome. And so, um, pumping, just like how much in the beginning did you feel like you were able to get ahead of his bottle feedings to where you did have a good storage then on that schedule?
Yeah, so I've never had a freezer stash, but I was able to advance, a few days. And so I would just, because it wasn't gonna be for that long of a period, I would just keep them. We have like a mini fridge where we keep my bottles, and then that's where I would keep my milk as it was going. Now it's more like it's pretty exact, so it's a little bit different. But in the beginning, I did have a lot. And I just had several. I really like where are they? These small bottles because they're 2 ounces. So especially when they're small, they don't drink as much. So I feel like this was good. Like, okay, do I need to give him one of these or one and a half? And then as he grew, well, I used the bigger ones to store. And I will say as well that these bottles I ended up getting in the hospital that I gave birth in. But there are other bottles like it online, and I would recommend these more than I recommend like the bottles that Medela or some of these pumps come with, because they have that little circle bottom. And I feel like it's just harder to get all your milk out. And, it is hard work. So I'm like, you know what, anything that I make sure I can get all the milk out. I do recommend those.
Yeah, and I actually like the idea of the smaller size too, because for me, seeing that full, I'd be like, "Yay, it's full," versus a bigger bottle or, the fatter ones that are like, bigger. I'm just like, they're hard to fill. Like, I've tried pumping, just to have extra in case of an emergency or something. And it's kind of funny too, because we are talking about age, and some of my kids, my toddlers, would want that milk, so they'd get it into it. Before.
Oh.
I could never build like a emergency, stash like I wanted. But I love the idea of the smaller ones because I think there is a lot in just being able to fill that up and just like feeling successful and like, oh, it's full, like,
Mhm.
so those are good.
Yeah. And if one like I have had somewhere like, I wouldn't discard of old milk. Like I'll use it for a milk bath, or you can, make soaps with it and stuff like that. But if I had had like, a full bottle and it's like 5 ounces, that probably is more devastating for me. Like I'm like, oh no, I worked so hard. Instead of like, oh, I had an extra ounce in here, and you know what, I forgot I had that extra half left and I didn't give it to him, and it's, somehow it pushed back in the fridge. And I had that happen, and it was just like, you know what? Well, I can still use it, as opposed to like a big amount, and you're like, oh no, like.
Yeah, no, that's smart. That's awesome. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks so much. Is there anything else that you want to add or any other tips you have?
Yeah, I would just say, if you're not able to nurse, don't be discouraged to try pumping exclusively. Just know that it's still breastfeeding. It's just via the pump, and it still gives baby so much nutrition. I mean, I can't tell you how happy I am when Ezra's sick and I can see the milk is like maybe blue or something. I'm like, wow, God's amazing. Like what? So it's just so rewarding to me and so worth it to keep going. And I know a lot of moms, maybe you're homeschooling or you have more kids, and it can be like, oh, it is a lot, but do whatever you can. And you can always, like I said, reach out to me, and I can share with you any specific questions people have, or any kind of tips and tricks that have helped me. But yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, I do know now too, they have those hands-free pumps that just fit right into your bra.
Yeah.
And so if you are super overwhelmed and busy, look into those. Um, and then yeah, so remind us again where to find you on social media.
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram as Pure Fun Life, and on Facebook it says, and YouTube it's also Pure Fun Life. On Facebook it has Luis and Raquel at the end because that's my husband. But if you just find me on any of those, like on Instagram, I have a link tree in my bio, and then that gives all the links for the social media accounts I have. So yeah, I'm hoping to get some more YouTube videos out. I'm kind of working on doing some homemaking in him, so maybe singing while I do some homemaking around. And then I also have a Facebook group, so it's really nice being able to share and then also learn from others. I definitely learn a lot. My husband's like, I'm always telling him like, oh, and then I was watching so and so story, or I was reading so and so's comment, and so it's so nice being able to have that fellowship as well with other homemakers.
Yes, it is amazing. Just the world we live in right now is amazing. I talk about how much more access we have to learn things where my parents maybe didn't have that much, because going to a library was so different. You had limited books, but we can type anything into Google and learn virtually anything. So, and then yeah, connecting with other people online is amazing, and you learn so much from different moms and how to do things. And I just learned about a new laundry system, and I'm so happy about it. And so, yeah. Anyway, cool. Well, I just want to say thanks to everyone for tuning in, and I hope everyone learned as much as I did. Like, this is amazing, and I'm excited because even after I have this baby, I want to start doing some extra pumping. And I think the tips that you gave were just great for anyone who wants to pump, and especially those who have to exclusively pump. And there's no shame in it. Like she said, it's breast milk. It's getting what your baby needs, and there's no shame in formula feeding either. So, anyway,
Yeah.
so thank you guys for joining us, and we will talk to you guys later.